Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the University of Melbourne for this special seminar, Compassion and Happiness, the Tibetan Viewpoint. This seminar is specially delivered by the distinguished Rinpoche. Before we begin the seminar, there are a number of housekeeping matters to sort it out. First of all, please switch off your mobile phone and try to avoid any unnecessary movements to ensure smooth running of the seminar. Secondly, please keep quiet during the seminar as a way of respect to the speaker. The structure of today's seminar will be divided into two sections. First, Rinpoche is going to give us a speech on compassion and happiness for about 50 minutes, then followed by 40 minutes of Q&A session. During the Q&A session, if you want to ask a question, please raise your hand to acknowledge that you want to talk, or you can write down your question on a piece of paper and deliver to the volunteers who can pass on to Rinpoche here. Another thing I want to mention to you is that please be brief when you're asking questions. Please just keep it to the questions rather than tell us what you feel about the seminar today. Now, please rise and give a huge round of applause to welcome the distinguished Rinpoche. Now it's my pleasure to welcome Lydia Brown, the president of Melbourne University's Buddhist Association, to deliver a welcome speech.
So today, on behalf of the University of Melbourne, it is my pleasure to welcome Venerable Khenpo Sodargye to our campus. Globally, Khenpo Sodargye is an influential figure in Tibetan Buddhism. He is the chief monk at the world's largest Buddhist academy, the Larang Five Sciences Buddhist Academy in the Sichuan province of China. Khenpo Sodargye has worked tirelessly to translate Tibetan Buddhist texts into Chinese. He has published more than 100 Buddhist books, including his most recent best-selling book titled Living Through Suffering. Through his translations and scholarly work, he has granted hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people in China and around the world access to profound Buddhist wisdom. In this way, he has touched many hearts and he has helped to foster a path of peace and happiness in people's lives. A cornerstone of Khenpo Sodargye's recent work has been through engaging with top universities worldwide, including Peking, Columbia, and Harvard universities. Through this work, he is engaged in dialogue with top academics around important issues of our time, including sustainable development, the science of spirituality, and what it means to lead a good life. Through this work, Khenpo Sodargye has become a leader of modern Buddhism. He teaches Buddhism that is relevant to those living in contemporary Asia and the West alike. His work advocates connections across cultures and connections across disciplines to advance happiness and flourishing of individuals and the society at large. Today, Khenpo Sodargye will talk to us about the topic of compassion and happiness. So on behalf of the University of Melbourne and on behalf of the University of Melbourne Buddhist Studies Society, I warmly welcome Khenpo Sodargye and thank you for him for coming.
All right. Today's topic, as you know, is about compassion and happiness, a Tibetan viewpoint. Rinpoche told me earlier that compassion is a vital element to inner peace and happiness. Today, he will explain and expand on this point. Before I invited Rinpoche to the stage, I would like to have a brief word on today's interpreter, Dr. Karen Jiang. who is a PhD graduate in microbiology from the University of Tennessee in the United States. However, her study of Buddhism has reached 14th year. Karen has also translated many Buddhist books from Chinese into English. Today we are all in very capable hands. So now it's my great pleasure and honor to have distinguished Rinpoche and Dr. Karen with us here today. Without further ado, please join me to welcome Rinpoche to the stage.
今天参加我们交流的在座的各位，因为我们大家的因缘聚合呢，有了今天的这样的一个交流的机会。
So first Khenpo just recited the prayer to Buddha Shakyamuni, and then he said, so first he wants to express his thanks to Lydia and everyone who is here, professors and students. And because the causes and conditions come together, so we have the opportunity to exchange our ideas here.
今天我的讲座呢，主要是用汉语讲，英语来口译。本来是也可以用藏语来讲，但是今天在座的大多数是西方人和还有一些汉族人。所以，为了各方面的方便呢，我们以这种方式来跟大家沟通。
So today's talk, I will use Chinese instead of Tibetan, which I plan to use Tibetan because the majority is Chinese and Western people, so I will use Chinese today.
我呢，是一位佛教徒，是来自于靠近喜马拉雅山的藏地，应该是海拔4000米平方4000米的地方。你这里呢，你这个墨尔本呢，我昨天到这里的时候特意算了一下，你墨尔本到我们藏地的色岛之间呢有9466公里，我没有算错的话呢。那么在这里呢是一个茫茫的大海当中的一个孤岛，而我呢来自于这样的一个高原的一个也是一个佛教徒。
So I'm a Buddhist from the place near Himalayas at the elevation of 4,000 meters, and for the distance from Sodargye where I was. Where I am, and the distance from there to here to Melbourne is, I calculated that distance, it's 9,466 kilometers. And so here is the isolated island in the ocean, and then I am from the plateau, the Tibetan plateau, so that's a little bit different.
虽然我来的地方呢，应该是藏地，你这里距离也是如此的遥远，同时呢，我想不管是南半球的人也好，北半球的人也好，东方的人、西方的人，我想我们之间呢，虽然有文化的差异、习惯的不同，还有可能肤色的迥异等等，但实际上呢，我们有一个共同点，就是说，追求幸福和远离痛苦。
So although I'm from a different place and the distance between my place and here is very far, and there are the difference between the Eastern and Western, and also our culture and our habits, our color, and our language, all those things we make different. but there are some common things we have, that is, we all seek happiness and we all do not want to have suffering.
因此我们今天利用短短的时间大家交流呢，我觉得应该是很有意义的。因为我们在座的每一个人，不管是什么样的人呢，实际上大家都是追求一种快乐，追求身体上的快乐、心灵的快乐、物质上的快乐、精神上的快乐。那么在这样的一个共同的目标和共同的追求的一条线上呢，我想我们有很多的共同的话题。
So I think today's topic and the way we discuss this topic is very meaningful, because everybody, we all seek happiness, no matter it's physical or mental, material or spiritual. So I think it's very good to talk about this topic on this direction.
今天我讲的内容呢有藏传佛教的慈悲与幸福。其实藏传佛教也好，汉传佛教也好，我觉得呢，今天在座的人，都是追求一个幸福和慈悲的人。在这里，也有有信仰的人，也没有信仰的人。但是呢，追求幸福方面呢，其实有信仰和没有信仰，都无所谓的。大家都有一个共同的这样的一个愿望。
And so today I'm going to talk about the Tibetan Buddhist point of view on compassion and happiness. And I think because for everyone here, no matter you are religion follower or a non-believer, I don't think that matters. I think because we all seek happiness, that is a common thing, that is a common hope we all have.
尤其是没有信仰佛教的人呢，在佛教的精神价值观当中能不能得到利益呢？我在这里呢，非常明确的说，决定会是得到利益的。那么佛教呢，实际上它是一个非常包罗万象的一种知识。在它的领域当中呢，作为佛教徒，他可以把它当做一种修行来接受；作为一些学者，他可以把它当做一种研究的领域来可以接受；作为一些艺术爱好者的话呢，他也是可以从中取出一些他所需要的知识。
And so for those non-believers, do you think those Buddhist methods, can they get benefited from that? The answer is definitely yes. Although they may not believe in Buddhism, but they can still be benefited from Buddhist methods. And all the knowledge in Buddhism is very comprehensive. It includes a lot of different stuff. So for a practitioner, they can view Buddhism as something they can use to do their practice. And for scholars, you can use Buddhism as the objective to your study or your research. And for artists, they can also find what they want from Buddhism.
所以我始终觉得，佛教的真正的教义的话呢，实际上是人类的，应该说是它是一个智慧的接近，精神当中的一个最有价值的精髓。因此，非常有必要，我们很多人把它当做一种精神的妙药来看，就像一个药。有一个药带有营养性的话呢，那么有些人把它当作是食品来使用，有些人把它当作营养品，有些人把它当作治疗身体当中的一个妙药来看待的话呢，实际上它的作用大家都已经领受到，这就是我们所需要的。
So I always think that the theories in Buddhism, it's quite a sense of the wisdom. So we can view Buddhist there is as something like a medicine or some medical or some nutrients. So for some people, they may use it as some food or sustenance for them. For some people, they use it as some supplementary nutrients. And then for some people, they really use it as medicine. So I think different people can get different benefits from Buddhism.
所以我经常去一些学校啊，去一些其他的企业等等，就是有很多地方。那么更重要的，我去没有信仰的场合当中去。那我去传播的呢，我并没有像是我非要一个佛教给大家传播，就是我们人类需要的基本的价值观。人类的价值观呢，不管是东西方的任何一个人都没有什么差别，大家都追求的是一种幸福和快乐。所以我到那里去，不需要把佛教当中的任何东西特意去改装，或者特意去宣传，我从来没有这样想过。我们任何一个人，大家应该明白一切事物的真相。真相就是真理，真理就是我们需要追求的人生当中的最好的梦想。
And so I always go to universities, companies to give talks, and I also like to associate with non-believers because I don't think that I'm going to spread just Buddhism or propagate Buddhism, because I think everything what I want to deliver is some basic value of human beings, like no matter it's in the West or in the East, everyone wants happiness. That's something basically everybody value it. And I don't want to do things like I just force them to believe something or pack Buddhist theories into something, then just sell those things to people. That's not what I want to do. I just hope that people can find the truth, and because everyone wants to find the truth, that's our dream.
在这个过程当中呢，我想我们在座的人，一方面现在是因为科技很发达。现在都有一种这样的交流的这种机会，但另一方面的话，我们大家都是也可能失去了非常有价值的一些传统的观念。我记得马德鲁丁金他呢就是曾经就是说过，他说如今我们这个科学极其发达的今天，也就是说科学技术天意呢，跟我们世界上的很多的人呢，就变成了一种这个秘密，就非常接近，但是仍然存在着什么样呢？就缺少我们人与人之间的殊途之情的道德观念。这就是他的话。我在想当时他出现的那个年代的时候呢，应该说科学并没有那么发达。包括我们现在利用的这个各种的交通也好，信息也好，各种工具呢，不像现在那样的发展泛滥。但是如今确确实实是科学技术已经铺满这个大地，让我们全世界的地球上的人们呢，可以在同一个时间当中，像邻居似的，可以互相对话，互相看见，互相呢交流。这就是科学的一种优异性。但是它的背后呢，我们人类历史上的很多的文明的东西，有价值的观念呢，不断的在消失。
And so during in this process, and I find something like this. First is because right now sciences and technology is so advanced, and these kind of provide us the opportunity for us to have more communication, and we can study from each other. That's a good thing. But at the same time, a lot of traditional value, traditional concepts, ideas really kind of die away. And in this, Martin Luther King, he said something like this. at his time. He said something like, because the development of science and technology, now we already make this world neighborhood, but we lack the ethical commitment to make this world brotherhood. So at his time, I don't think the transportation communication is as advanced or developed as right now. But now we can see that because of sciences and technology, we really can just talk to each other, no matter it's you're here and the other person is at the other side of the earth. We can just talk at the same time, see each other, do things like we are really neighbors. So I think that's the strength, that's the benefit of science and technology.
在这样的时刻呢，我想我们在座的很多年轻人，既要追求科技知识的同时，也要不能忘视我们传统当中非常有珍贵的一些精神财富。那这些精神财富呢，可能人们最需要的，它也许伴随着我们的最长久的。
And so at this time, I think for all of you, like, especially young people, when you are pursuing your study in science and technology, and at the same time, I think what is very important is to pursue the precious spiritual wealth, because those things are really what we human beings need, and those things can accompany you for a much longer time.
今天在这里跟大家简单说一下我们的慈悲和幸福。那么慈悲呢，跟平时实践当中所讲到的爱和有一定的差别。因为所谓的爱呢，它具有一定条件的情况下，也是一种自私的性，也是一种带有极其有一种目的性的一种执着。而所谓的尤其是在佛教当中所讲到的慈悲呢，无条件的一种奉献他人，关爱他人，或者说是完全是想帮助他的这么一个非常高尚的心。
And so here today, I'm going to talk briefly on compassion and happiness. So compassion, it's different from love or affection. And because for love or affection, it's conditioned. Most of the time, it's out of the selfish interest, something like for ourselves, or some clinging or attachment, or some purpose. But it's just the personal or selfish purposes a lot of times. For Buddhist compassion, it's unconditional. And it's about how we care about other people, and it's a really sublime way of our mind.
因为我们如果没有慈悲心，光有爱的话，在生活当中呢，虽然追求幸福，但是需要付出的很多，也许在这个过程当中，让你带来了无量的痛苦。
So without compassion, if you only have love or affection, during the process when you pursue happiness, you may encounter a lot of suffering instead.
其实这个慈悲心呢，并不是仅是一个佛教的说法，你们有智慧的人都可以很认真的去思维一下。我们这个地球上的所有的人如此的自私的话呢，确实有非常大的困难。为什么？因为都没有具足慈悲心，都占用自己的资源的话，我们现有的这个地球的资源是有限的，每一个人占用很多的，那这样的话，我们现在的人都是不一定能够的，更何况说跟下一代的人去考虑。因此，如果我们这个70个亿的人全部都是为自己而想的，不考虑别人的话呢，那跟我们的资源呢有非常大的这种困难。
So the emphasis on compassion is not just in Buddhism, because we can analysis or we can just examine this idea. Why? Because if all of us are very selfish, if we just very selfish, we only think about ourselves, then we just take the natural resources just unlimitedly. We use up everything, and then how about the next generation? They will have nothing to available for them to use. So if all the 7 billion people just do whatever they want, then we cannot see the future. How can that be? How can we suffer because of the short of natural resources?
我们现在实践当中的很多的恐惧、顾虑，还有焦虑等等，这些是来自于什么？来自于自身。如果我们内心当中无条件的想帮助别人的话，不管是你借助任何一个人，你非常的快乐，因为我们现在内心当中有自我保护，不愿意跟别人交往。在这个时候呢，我们只能看得惯部分的人，看不惯别人，更何况说是敌人和跟我们有仇的人。
So in this world, we have a lot of fear, anxiety, and a lot of negative emotions, and all those things just from our selfishness. And if you have some unconditional compassion, then you will find, no matter who you are associated with, you will find you are very happy. And because we are so, we really have a lot of self-protection, and then you will find yourself, you like this group of people, and you dislike another group of people, then there is no need to mention your enemies.
为什么我笑？
Why did I laugh? 好，三次这样的，也就是说，我们自心当中有一种利他的慈悲心的话，实际上给自己带来一种快乐，给别人也是带来快乐的。著名的莎士比亚，他曾经讲过，他说所谓的慈悲心呢，它是一个双重的祝福，也就是说慈悲别人，那么施予慈悲者他自己呢非常的开心，而接受慈悲者的话呢也是更加开心。这一点我们很多人在生活当中也是可以感受得到的。 And so I think in our mind, if we have the altruistic compassion, then we can bring happiness not only for ourselves but also for others. Because Shakespeare, he said something like compassion is a double blessing. He says this compassion, when we have compassion, then the giver, the compassionate person, he will be happy, and then the receiver, who is the one the compassionate person takes care of, then the receiver will also be very happy. So I think this is something we all have some personal experience.
那这样的这种对生活有意义，对我们的整个身边的人有意义的慈悲心是通过什么样的方式来得到呢？实际上是他可以依靠一种修炼、学习才能得到的。我们在座的人都知道，我们身体的一些锻炼呢，实际上我最近看到很多人就是在跑步啊，就是在锻炼自己的身体，得到一个健康的目的。但这种锻炼呢，实际上身体是有限的，而我们的慈悲心如果通过修炼来进行修持的话呢，那他会得到了这种无限的、无止境的一种爱。而这一点呢，我想我们在座的人，应该可以 考虑一下，就是到底怎么样才能得到这样的慈悲心。
And so, because this kind of compassion is very meaningful for our life, it's also very meaningful for people around us. So, when we think, so how can I cultivate this kind of compassion? The answer is you can learn that, you can practice that. Because as I see, there are a lot of people like to do some workout or exercise outdoor, like jogging on the street. And this is just something make you have the physical health. But this is limited because it's just about your body. But if you practice compassion, and then you'll find through practice, when you cultivate compassion, that is something unlimited. It's indefinite. It's an indefinite compassion. So you can just think about it. How can I really cultivate compassion, this unconditional compassion?
这次很多人问我你去奥斯特利亚怎么样，感觉如何？他们这样说的。我说我去过世界上的很多国家，应该是从某种程度上是真的可以称得上是人间天堂。为什么这么讲呢？我也看到在这里的可能 GDP 不一定很高，就是这个整个外面的这个财务来讲呢不一定很高，但是物质和环境给带来的一种满足感呢，应该是很多地方的人是没有的。
So this time when I came here, a lot of my friends asked me, so how's Australia? And I told them, I think here it's just like the heaven in the human realm. And so why I said that, maybe the GDP here may not be very high, but I think because the natural environment and everything here, that make a lot of people feel very happy. That's the thing I think it's like a heaven.
但我说你们是人家天堂，不能太高兴。也许可能你们的有些内心的精神上的快乐呢，不一定特别贫穷的藏地的地方的人的心态。
And so when I see here, it's like a heaven in the human realm. You should not be like too satisfied with this statement because although you feel happy here, but like in Tibet. People have like their living conditions, the material conditions that is not as good as here, but they are happier.
说实在我在藏地生活的过程当中呢，看见很多藏族人呢，他即使生活在怎么样困窘的话，实际上内心当中有一种非常欢喜。他的脸上呢，就是经常会出现一种微笑。这个原因呢，最主要的，我认为是慈悲心。那么慈悲心呢，在我们藏地来讲，因为佛教的进入，它有比较层次比较低的修悲心的一群人，还有更高层的有一群人，有两种人。
And so because in Tibet. A lot of Tibetan people, they are very happy, and sometimes you will see they have very limited material resources. They may live in poverty, but when you see they really live with joy and they have smiles all the time. I think the cause of that is because of compassion, and where their compassion come from? That's from the influence of Buddhism. And for that part, there are two levels of practice on compassion. One is the basic level, and another one is advanced level.
这些比较文化知识比较低层的这些人呢，他虽然没有很理论的一些依据，但是因为佛教早期已经进入到藏地的生活的传统当中，所以呢，他们每一个人都自然而然从小都会发这种心呢，我要利益天下的所有的众生，包括他们经常点灯的时候呢，都会发这种愿。 愿这个智慧慈悲的这种灯盏，能牵出我们世界上的所有的这些自私的、苦难的众生的黑暗的心理的黑暗，他们每个人会这样发愿的。
And so for the basic level, the practice of the basic level, it's practiced by ordinary people. Some of them may be just illiterate. They haven't studied the theories in Buddhism, but because of the tradition, the habit, and custom, other things in Tibet, people just naturally have a very compassionate intention. They want to benefit all sentient beings, not just the human beings. So they practice a lot of the offering lamps, and when they do that, they will think, may the lamp of wisdom, the lights, the rays, will dispel the selfishness, the darkness in all beings.
还有他们经常转经轮，转经轮呢，我看到很多人特别喜欢，就是藏人拿转经轮的这个照片就拍下来。但是我更希望的是什么呢？他们内心当中的利他的这种发愿，如果能用照相机像素比较高的能拍下来的话呢，可能是更精彩、更值钱。
So and another thing they like to do is use their prayer well. And I saw a lot of artists, they like to take photos of Tibetan people using their prayer wells. And I think those pictures are good, that's fine. But I think the altruistic mind inside their body, that's the more precious thing. That if they have a high definition camera, if they can take those altruistic mind on picture, that will be much better.
他们在用这个转经轮的时候呢，都是从内心当中的这种爱不断的旋转，不断的传递，来自一代一代的下去，这就是一种转经轮的方法当然我不敢说他们所有的这样的，但是确实是有相当一部分人是有这样的这种发愿。还有呢，我们可能在座的人都看过，就是他们很远的地方，就是用这个一步这个一步一拜磕头，就是到拉萨等其他地方去。那这个时候呢，也会发愿，就是利益天下无边的一切众生。
And also when they use the prayer well, they love, the compassion in their mind just spin and spread, extend to much wider group, scope or range, and from generation to generation. So I think I cannot guarantee that every one of them are doing this or have this kind of intention, but I can see majority of them, they do have this kind of very compassionate, very altruistic intention. And also you can see there are a lot of people in Tibet, they make their fullness prostration, and that's the way they go from some place to Lhasa to a pilgrim.
还有一部分人呢，是通过辩论、理论的剖析，或者说是参修，来真正享受到这个慈悲心的这种重要性和它的修法。那他们这一群人呢，可以用一种非常深刻的道理来进行挖掘我们内心当中人本来具有的这种大爱无私的这种心。那这是其实我们每一个人应该是值得追求的。
And for the advanced level of this practice, for the monastics and some other people, they do a lot of theoretical studies, and they do debate, and they also do meditation. Through those methods, they can enjoy compassion, and because through those profound theories, we can find the truth of compassion, and then they will find that the great compassion is really something in our mind, and they find it's very worthy to pursue.
这种慈悲心呢，是怎么修呢？曾经有一个 这藏族非常著名的歌戏叫做布多瓦。他面前来了一个妇女说是我不会修慈悲心，怎么样修？当时布多瓦歌戏给他说，你的儿子叫做是托雷扎。他说你自己的儿子托雷扎那样，你怎么样关心他，就是关心所有天下的众生，这就是修慈悲心的方法。
So for compassion, how do we really cultivate that? How do we nurture it? And I think there is the example because in the past, in ancient times, and Geshe Potowa, he is the great master, and once a lady went to him and asked him, how can I cultivate compassion? And then Potowa told her, so your son is called Chuletsa, and when you have the experience, you know how you really care about him. The way how you care about your son, if you spread that affection, that compassion from your son to other people, then you know how to cultivate compassion to more people.
你们当中如果有人想修慈悲心的话呢，你在生活当中你最爱的人，那么对他的这种爱一样，就是对所有的众生，那你去观想。但是很多人想说这是不可能的事情，做不到。是刚开始是做不到的，但实际上我们的心它可以在进行修炼。我刚才讲了，它可以进行修炼。当它修炼到一定程度的时候呢，实际上你对自己的亲人的爱那样无条件的所有的人类，包括对其他的这个所有的众生呢，你的这种爱呢，可以逐渐从广度上讲，所有的天下的众生呢，你对自己的亲生孩子，或者是你自己的亲生的这种配偶一样的，对所有的众生呢，都会产生一种强烈的这种慈悲心或者爱。
So I think among all of you, you must have someone you really love, and the closest one, someone you really care about. And if you just think about that, just recall that, and then you think, how can I just spread this to other people? And after you think about this and you try that, it can really work. However, some people may say, oh, it's impossible, it's mission impossible. I cannot do that for those people I don't like. And so at the beginning, it may be true, it's not so easy. However, our mind can be trained, can be tamed. If we really use the love, the compassion we have towards our closest friends, our children, then you will find that one day you can really spread that compassion to all human beings and even all sentient beings in the world. And then you will find that you will find that you can treat everyone just like your closest one or your child.
其实我们的很多的情绪在平时的这种观念呢，可以改变的。就像现在的生物学和还有神经学当中呢，对人的大脑，它可以叫做可塑性，跟原来的这种状态呢，它可以做变化的。那同样的，我们的性的人和的这种执着呢，它可以完全是在善的方面，在好的方面呢就进行改变。那这不是一种天方夜谭，在我们的实际生活当中，人类历史上，包括我们现在像我身边所发生的很多人，在家人也好，出家人也好，有信仰的人，没有信仰的人，他们通过很长时间的努力的修行慈悲心呢，最后他的确就对自己的所有的身口意呢不太很执着，他很愿意用自己的所有的爱奉献给全人类。那这样的现象呢，即使短短的时间当中，它可以体现。
And so all our emotion, all our mental process, those things can all be changed. Because even in science, through some years of study in neuroscience, they also find neuroplasticity. So that means our mind, our brain can be changed. And for our mind, we always like, if we think or we know that we all have some selfish thinking, but that thing, that habit, that trend or habitual trend can be changed. We can just guide our mind into something more altruistic, more virtuous. And from that, some people may think, some people may think, oh, it's impossible to change our mind or our emotion, our habit of thinking. But that really can be changed, because as I see people around me, like those lay practitioners or monastics or believers, non-believers, I saw that they all kind of have their compassion cultivated. And then after they have the compassion, then they are not still attached to their own body, speech, and mind, but they just want to use love to contribute to all human beings.
如果我们很多人修悲心修大慈大悲心的话呢，一般来讲家里不会吵架的。不知道你们这边有没有家人互相吵架的？
So I think if a lot of us, or if many people like to practice the great loving kindness and compassion, then you will avoid a lot of quarrels in your family. And I don't know if you do that in your home or not here.
表面上看那没有的，但是一般在公众场合当中也看不出来。家庭的战争都是内部的战争。
So it appears that this kind of thing is not happening in public, but I think the family wars, it's often happens in different people's family.
在我认识的一些人当中呢，家庭的一些战争年代呢，就最后都改变了，就是和平年代，这样的这种状况相当多。
So, and for people who I know, through their practice of compassion, their age of family war changed to the age or time of peace.
其实我们人与人之间的任何一种战争，或者说矛盾，或者说互相攻击的话，那么大多数是来源于自我保护或者是自私的一个心态当中进行发生的。
And I think that a lot of wars and conflicts, attacks among people, they all come from self-protection and selfishness.
翻过来说，我们经常修这样的一种无私的、无条件的慈悲心的话呢，那整个心态就完全的可以变为一种非常柔和、温和，无论在任何的环境当中呢，他都可以找到自己的幸福。
And on the contrary, if we can cultivate this unconditional, selfless compassion, then our mind will become very tamed, pliant, and then we can find happiness no matter where we are in any circumstance.
其实所谓的幸福呢，每个人都是会追求的。有些人认为有吃有穿都是很幸福的，有些人找到自己最喜欢的人都是很幸福的，有些人可能会通过喝酒抽烟或者说是甚至吸毒就是他这种方法来一种感官的刺激，就认为这是世界上的一种幸福。
And so for happiness, every one of us, we all pursue happiness. For some people, they think if they have some enough material wealth, like they have food, they have clothing, then they feel it's happiness. And then some people, they think if they can be with someone they really love, that's happiness. And then some people think if they take alcohol or smoking or take drugs, that's kind of happiness they have, but this is some sensory pleasure.
甚至有些人自杀也是觉得是一种幸福。
Some people they even think committing suicide is a way for them to pursue happiness.
以前法国有一位叫做帕斯卡，他是一个著名的物理学家和数学家。他说有些人即使自杀上吊自杀，他也是想获得远离痛苦。因为他远离痛苦的方法呢没有别的选择，所以我们在这个世界上为了达到自己的幸福的目标的各种各样的选择呢，其实是人们都想获得真正的幸福。
So why did I say that? Is because a French mathematician or a physicist, Pascal, he said something like, some people they hand themselves to commit suicide. The reason they did that is because they want to be free from suffering, but they have no other choice. And so everyone wants to get genuine happiness.
而且这样的幸福呢，实际上很多人觉得也是有不同的定义。比如说法国的有一个应该是1927年的时候获得诺贝尔的文学奖的叫做是伯克森。伯克森他是这样说的，他说人类历史上的最伟大的思想家们呢，对幸福的概念是一种模糊的，他们每一个人以各自的思维方式来对幸福下了不同的一些定义。按照他的说法呢讲呢，人类历史上的所有的这些智者们呢，对幸福呢并没有一个确定的定义。
And so also for the definition of happiness, there are not a definite one. And another French philosopher, his name is Buddhism. He is a Nobel Prize laureate in 1927. And he said something like this. He said, all the thinkers in the history or in the world, they all give the definition of happiness, but they are all very vague. And they just define happiness in their own terminology. So there's no one definite definition for happiness.
其实他认为幸福是一种模糊的，但我们佛教的观点来讲呢，幸福呢实际上并不是很模糊的，应该说可以说很清楚的，有暂时和就近的一个幸福。暂时的幸福呢，许多我们在生活当中对感官和对整个自己的身体做一系列的一些刺激，或者说是依靠外在的一种因缘所带来的暂时的一种满足感，或者说减少它的痛苦呢，可以我们称之为它是快乐或者说幸福。
And so, although a lot of people think the definition of happiness is big, but from Buddhist point of view, the definition of happiness is very clear. And in Buddhism, there are two categories of happiness. One is temporary happiness. Another one is ultimate happiness. For the temporary happiness, it's basically about our sensory pleasure and the sensation of that part in our daily life. And those temporary happiness is from a lot of external causes. And when those causes present, then we will feel kind of contentment, and also our suffering will be decreased.
其实这个我们可能在座的人应该要值得好好的思考，因为我们想获得一种快乐，那么依靠一种外在的物质来充实自己， 那一旦离开了这个物质的时候呢，你心就不会快乐的。有些人认为是可能家庭当中有一些财富啊，有一些你喜欢的人啊，或者说是你喜欢某个装饰品啊，那这样来就是认为是自己是最快乐、最幸福。可是，一旦离开了它，或者说当时为了追求它的过程当中遇到了其他的一些阻碍的时候呢，你心里的痛苦呢，自然而然会出现。
And so, in fact, I think every one of us should really think about this, because for the temporary happiness, because for all those temporary happiness, it all depend on the material things outside, from the external side, and all those things kind of conditioned. So when those conditions present, then you get those temporary happiness. But if they are gone, like when you think wealth or some people or some adornment, those things can make you happy or give you happiness. But when those things are not present, when you are apart from them, when there are some obstacles, some barriers for you to reach them, then you will have a lot of suffering that naturally come.
其实我们很多人并没有重视这一点。应该说是内心当中的慈悲利他心，或者说是参正悟。如果在内心当中寻找你的永恒的快乐的时候呢，当我们外境当中的这些刺激性的对感官的不断的抓来给你添一种幸福，一旦没有的时候呢，你的幸福又马上失去了比如说你要去喝酒，今天也要去喝酒快乐，明天也要去喝酒快乐再过年他没有酒的时候呢，你不快乐。你如果依靠一个朋友来得你快乐，当朋友高兴的时候你快乐，没有的时候不快乐。其实这个是非常麻烦的。应该说有一种当它存在的时候也快乐，即使对它离开的时候呢，我还是能保住我的快乐。这种心态呢，这就是我们很需要的。
And so I think for most of us, we do not give enough importance on cultivate the external happiness or about how to gain the ultimate happiness through meditation or things like that. Because for temporary happiness, all those things are from it's just like some sensory pleasure, because those things they are conditional. You can always lose that kind of pleasure, because if you think you can gain some temporary happiness through drinking liquor or wine, and then you may feel happy when you have them, but if there is no liquor or wine, then you will feel unhappy. And if your happiness is conditioned by a friend, then when this friend is happy, then you feel happy. But if this friend is unhappy or something like that, then you will feel unhappy too. So all those things kind of they are conditional. What we should pursue is something like we should feel happy, or we will have happiness no matter this thing is there or not.
所以我始终觉得我们现在大多数人的幸福呢，是非常渺小，它是很暂短，就像闪电一样的，一会儿就没有了，一会儿就没有了。你觉得你很高兴，有些人觉得自己的青春而感到自豪，很好看呐，我现在非常好。过一段时间你就老了，特别痛苦。有一些人呢，认为我现在很有钱呐，过一段时间可能企业倒闭或者是什么其他原因，所有的钱都没有了，也很痛苦。有些人呢，我觉得我现在很成功，有地位，但是过一段时间，人生当中的很多无常的烦恼随时出现，所以这个时候呢，又很痛苦。
And so I think I always think that because for the temporary happiness, it's very weak, it's very fleeting, just as fleeting as lightning. it's very transient. For example, some people, they may think, oh, I'm very young, I have good looking, but you will get old, right? So when you get old, you will feel painful, you will get suffering. And for some people, they think they are very rich, but maybe after some time they get bad corruptive, then the suffering just arises. And some people, they think that they are very healthy. However, you know, everything is impermanent. One day, when you get sick, then suffering arises naturally.
修大乘佛法的人呢，我不是在这里来打广告，但是呢，我内心当中这样想的，是真的是永恒的幸福，可以这么讲，外在当中的这个斗士，或者说是胜算呢，没有什么关系。无论是他处于任何时候，年轻的时候、年老的时候、富裕的时候、贫穷的时候，在任何状态当中呢，他可以保持一个他非常平稳的这种快乐。我记得我的上师老师法王精美本咒，他在晚年的时候呢，他的一个作品当中这样说过，他说人生的这种这个人生现在呢，就是已经成了越来越老了，但是这个幸福呢，就是越来越正常。无论是死也好，活也好，在恒时的修行状态当中，会无比的快乐。大概的意思这样的，我全部背了下来我以前背得下来，但是到了这里地缘翻译我背不下来了，所以我就是想这句话呢非常我们就很多人可能感受不到的，包括你们当中的很多成功人士也是今天很快乐，但过一段时间也许你会变成愁眉苦脸的人了。
And so, and from my experience and from what I see, I think most of the Mahayana Buddhists, they do have this ultimate happiness or eternal happiness. I'm not trying to advertising Mahayana Buddhism here, but this is just something I saw because for a lot of them, they also have something. They also have the times when they goes up and down, and they also sometimes they are rich, sometimes they are poor. Sometimes and all of them go through from young age to old, but they always can maintain a peaceful happiness inside. That's something I see, and also because my guru, Jigmen Pencho Rinpoche, during his when he get old. In one of his writing, he said something like this. He said, although my body get older and older, but the happiness inside myself just becomes stronger and stronger. And there are also, he said other things, because right now I have some low attitude reaction, so I cannot remember all he composed. And I think this is true. And so you should just think in this way. Even for some very successful people or figure here, you should just think maybe one day your successful status may not just last forever. Someday it may be something different or the opposite.
我个人而言，虽然没有他那样的境界，但是我刚开始出家的时候呢，对世间的名声得失是比较执着的。那现在的话呢，我可以说，对世间的很多东西呢，我还是看得非常淡，这不是什么口头上说的。所以，我想我们每一个人，都是通过自身的一些对慈悲心，和空性修行的话呢，我们不说其他的对众生和对整个世界，对自身的这种生活和人生呢，有无比的这种利益。那这种利益呢，可能你卖豪宅豪车也许可能超越了它的价值。
And so I myself, I do not have that kind of realization as my guru Jigmen Pencho Rinpoche. But for myself, when I just when I was ordained at that time, I do have a lot of clinging or attachment to fame, gain and loss, a lot of that kind of attachment. But right now, I really don't care too much about those things. So that is also something I experienced by myself. So through our practice of compassion and emptiness, we really can gain some happiness that can last much longer and stable, not just as those temporary happiness that are conditioned. So we don't need to talk about how we can benefit the world or other sentient beings. Just through the practice of meditation on compassion, you'll find that it can benefit yourself to a great extent. And that is something different from the pleasure you can gain when you have a mansion or have a luxury car.
我想每个人应该这种快乐和幸福是从内心当中比较稳固的要得到，否则的话依靠一种物质来，就像充电一样的，就今天一会儿充一下又没有了，又抓一点又抓一点，那这样的快乐呢实际上是不快乐的。因此
So I think what the happiness that we should pursue is some stable happiness, not something very fleeting, not those very fleeting pleasure through our pursuit of material world, like materials or those material things or wealth.
现在有些有钱的人就是认为是金钱才是快乐的。我遇到一些大陆的有些有钱的人，他们要买高楼房，不像你们这里一样的买房子越高越快乐。结果越高的房子里面的这个窗户呢，最后它就变成了这个跳楼的这种。
I know some very rich people in China, they think that money makes them happy, but like for them, they don't like to buy houses like here. They like the high-rise, so they want to choose the levels very high as possible. So, but because they don't have this stable happiness inside, they only want to get those material things. So finally, the window of their apartment or on the high-rise become the place they try to avoid or get free from the suffering they have.
总而言之，有很多的外在的一种事物来充实自己是非常辛苦的，也是没有意义的。我特别希望很多人真正的短暂的人生当中，自己的内心都扩大，豁然开悟，对所有的身边的众生呢，都全部都变成自己的最好的朋友，而所有的世界当中呢，没有一个凹凸不平的这种镜像，在这种境界呢，在我们人生当中是真正的这种有价值的幸福。
And so I really think the happiness that we pursue from outside, from the external causes and conditions, is really meaningless, and it's really make us exhausted. So I really hope that you can find some happiness inward from your mind. And I hope you have a very open mind, and I really hope you can get enlightenment. And I hope that all the people around you will become your closest friends. And I also hope that your world will be universal, positive, beautiful, instead of some positive, some negative, some you like, some you dislike. I hope you like everything in your world. And that's something very valuable.
也许这样的这种慈悲心呢，可能很多人都不一定能接触得到。但不管怎么样呢，在我们的生活当中呢，可能点点滴滴，慢慢，用爱的这个传递呢，对整个人类社会来讲它是非常有意义的。我不希望我们地球上的所有的人呢，都是非常自私的。在这样的话，我们的空间会越来越狭窄。 那么我们之间的这种沟通和联系呢，虽然现在的交通工具和信息工具那么发达，可是每一个人自私的话呢，在自私的这种空气当中呢，我们都不一定生存得非常快乐。
And so I think this idea of compassion, maybe not all of you can accept or receive this kind of information, but I think in our daily life, just a little by little, we will kind of cultivate this kind of compassion and spread that to people around you. And I think this is very meaningful for our human society. And I really hope that we will not just live in a very selfish way, because if we are all very selfish, our space will be more and more narrow. And although the communication approaches we have right now is very developed and advanced, however, if we just be very selfish without compassion, none of us will be happy.
最后呢，我有一个特别喜欢的一个寄送吧，他是印度一个非常著名的叫吉田论师他说的。那么他呢，意思就是说，这样的这种慈悲心，就以前没有升起的话呢，但愿让它在你们的心里面升起来。那么已经有了这样的慈悲心呢，愿它就是蒸蒸日上。所以我用藏语来念一遍。像生出根部，就马地板的结节，就地板上嘛，没把功力功能培养修，谢谢，把真切。
So next, I want to quote a verse from a very famous Indian scholar. His name is Shantideva. He said something like this. He said, if you have not yet generated a compassionate mind, then I hope that will be born. Not yet born, be born. And if you already have this kind of compassion, I hope that compassion will be enhanced without any decline. And then Khenpo just give us the Tibetan way of how to recite that verse. And next, Khenpo said, thank you very much.